Hello and welcome to Blessed Man Meditations. Some time ago, Alex O'Connor, a prominent atheist with multiple social media platforms such as the Cosmic Skeptic YouTube channel, the More Alex O'Connor YouTube channel, and the Within Reason podcast, uploaded a video called Every Argument for Atheism. Alex's video, Every Argument for Atheism, was a response Alex made to a video posted by popular Christian YouTuber Redeemed Zoomer. My zeal for God and my love for the lost compels me to respond to some of the things Alex says in his video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and have a blessed rest of your day.
A new, fast-growing Christian YouTube channel, Redeemed Zoomer, put out a video promisingly called All Atheist Arguments Answered in 10 Minutes. Let's see how he does.
Story of Jesus was copied from the story of Horus or some other ancient character. Okay, dude, that's a Reddit atheist-level myth. Even atheist scholars know that that's silly.
Agreed.
Was the story of Jesus copied from Horus or some other ancient character? One of the arguments in Alex's video, Every Argument for Atheism, addresses that concern. Alex is responding to Redeemed Zoomer. And in the Redeemed Zoomer video to which Alex is responding, the atheist says the story of Jesus was copied from Horus or some other ancient character. In the Redeemed Zoomer video, the Christian responds that even atheist scholars know that's silly, and Alex responds that he agrees that it is silly that Jesus was copied from Horus or some other ancient character. I'm going to do a multiple part response based on this portion of Alex's video. My responses come from an AI summary, an article on the Got Questions website, an article on the Cold Case Christianity website, an article on the Archaeologist website, and an article on the Reasonable Theology website. There's also an entire chapter from the book Person of Interest devoted to this topic, chapter 3 in Person of Interest. From the Reasonable Theology website, was Christ a copycat? Is the story of Jesus just a retelling of pagan myths? Is it true that Jesus is just one of many gods said to have been born of a virgin, died, and resurrected as some claim? Those who encounter this claim online or elsewhere may start to wonder about the truth of the New Testament. Is the account of Christ simply a retelling of dying and rising pagan gods? If Jesus' life does parallel other gods, does that mean that Jesus is also a myth? This argument implies that if gods we consider false claim the same things that Christianity claims, Christianity must also be false. This guilt by association mindset attempts to discredit the accounts of the Gospels by suggesting that life events attributed to Jesus are recycled bits of storytelling that are popular across different cultures and time periods. So what is a believer to think in the face of such bold assertions? There are two important questions that a believer should ask when tackling the Jesus myth allegations. First, are these alleged parallels to pagan gods historically accurate? Second, if they were accurate, what difference would it make? Are there really a number of gods who have biographies shockingly similar to that of Jesus of Nazareth? Names that are commonly included in this group of so-called similar gods include Mithras, Dionysius, and Osiris, among others. This image is one version of this attack on the deity of Jesus that is continually circulating online. Some claim that other gods share the attributes of being virgin-born, being born on December 25th, which is not in the Bible, by the way, performing the same kinds of miracles Jesus did, dying, in some cases being crucified, and miraculously resurrecting from the dead. Let's examine several of the pagan gods that Christianity is alleged to have plagiarized, as well as 3 of these shared life events. The shared life events being virgin birth, death, and resurrection. First, Mithras. Unless you consider emerging fully grown out of a rock, being born of a virgin, this god already has one strike against being similar to Jesus. Certainly he must have been crucified, right? No, actually Mithras didn't even die. He was believed to be taken to paradise on a chariot when still alive. That's actually like Elijah from the Old Testament. Or Elijah or Elisha, whichever one. Since he didn't die, he didn't resurrect from the dead. 3 strikes, you're out. Dionysius, also known as Bacchus. Dionysius doesn't fare much better. Dionysius was said to be conceived out of an affair between Zeus and a mortal woman, Semele. After Zeus's wife Hera found out, she tricked the mortal into demanding that Zeus reveal himself in all his glory. He begrudgingly agreed, knowing that this would kill her. He was, however, able to rescue Dionysius and sewed him, or his heart, into his thigh until he was born. This is the claim for his rebirth, a far cry from the death and bodily resurrection of Jesus. Osiris. There is no birth story recorded in regards to Osiris. He was eventually killed by his own brother, torn into 14 pieces, and strewn about in Egypt. His sister and wife, Isis, gathered and buried almost all the pieces. Osiris became the ruler of the underworld and the god of the dead. Some versions of this life of Horus say that Osiris was magically reassembled by Isis and impregnated her before becoming ruler of the underworld. Even if this version is to be preferred, it's worth noting that unlike Jesus, Osiris would have been brought back to life by another rather than by his own power. Horus. As mentioned above, most versions of the birth of Horus are the result of a sexual relationship between Osiris and his wife's sister, Isis. Some claim that Horus was crucified, but this is not only unsupported by history, but is a major anachronism. Crucifixion was a Roman method of execution put into practice thousands of years later. They may as well say Horus was killed in a motorcycle crash. Rather than being crucified, most versions of the Horus myth do not have a death recorded at all. In some instances, it was believed that he merged with the sun god Re, and each sunrise is a symbol of him being reborn each day. Again, this is hardly parallel to Jesus' resurrection. Let's pretend it was true. The above exercise can be continued to address all of the many different gods that Christ is alleged to have been copied from. As you can see, claims of pagan plagiarism are unfounded and terribly inaccurate. Even so, you may still encounter arguments that attempt to debunk refutations of the allegations in the above chart. Fortunately, a proper defense of Jesus' unique claims to deity does not hinge solely on examination of these other gods. Let's pretend that one or more of the above gods really did share the same biography as Jesus, particularly in the areas of their birth, death, and resurrection. Would this disprove the gospel accounts of Christ? The short answer is no, it wouldn't. Here's why. We determine the historical accuracy of an event or person based on evidence, not on uniqueness. We do not demand that the details be completely unique in order to consider them to be true. Take this example as shared by Greg Koukl of Stand to Reason. Quote by Greg Koukl. Did you know there's a book that was written around the turn of the last century about a ship that was an unsinkable ship which hit an iceberg on its maiden voyage and sank? The name of the ship was the Titan. This is remarkable because some 15 years later the Titanic sunk on its maiden voyage after hitting an iceberg. Now what if you had read the novel and then later heard the ship called the Titanic had actually sunk? I'm sure you can see that rejecting the story of the Titanic on its face would be foolish only because you'd read a novel similar to the actual event. Whether or not the Titanic sank is determined by the evidence for its sinking, unrelated to any fictional stories that were like it. End quote by Koukl. Even if an historical event shares characteristics of a mythological one, the reality of what happened is not diminished. The truth of an event is determined by the evidence for or against it, not in absence of similar fictional claims. Does this refutation of the Jesus myth allegation prove that Jesus existed? Actually, no, it does not. It does, however, effectively dismantle an attack on Jesus as an historical figure and properly frames the question as one of evidence. Remember, our aim as apologists is to help others separate fact from fiction and lovingly point them to the person of Jesus. Once you've removed this false allegation as a potential explanation for a belief in the historical Jesus, you can then discuss the overwhelming evidence that supports his life, death, and resurrection. Conclusion. As each website and each AI summary cited in this series of responses to this specific objection assert, there are multiple good reasons to reject the notion that the story of Jesus was copied from Horus or some other ancient character or combination of characters. Separately, we can consider the evidential support for the veracity of the New Testament to see that those can be treated as reliable historical documents and that have contents that can be trusted as historically reliable. In addition, we can look at the reliability of the Old Testament documents on their own as a separate issue, and we can consider them to be historically reliable for multiple reasons, and that is one reason of many reasons why we have sufficient reason to believe that Jesus was who he said he was, not a copy of an ancient myth. We have good reason, based on evidence, actually, to trust in him as Savior and Lord.
I see the evidence of your good.